And welcome to the Tuesday, June 16th, 2015 Land Use Committee. And I am Councilor Rick Kiley, taking over chair duties from Councilor Rolfing. And who's waving to us from the audience. So thank you very much. And first order of business is approval of the minutes. And do I have a motion?
So moved. Approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Okay, hearing none, motion passed unanimously. All right, we first item and only item on our agenda this afternoon is a discussion of off-sale alcohol code by Councilor Dean Karski and some potential changes.
Works.
Welcome.
Thank you. Dean Karski, Sioux Falls City Council, Northwest District. Appreciate you guys, everybody taking the time to stick around. Thank you. Today's discussion, I'm going to focus strictly on off-sale alcoholic beverages, and I want to emphasize the off-sale part. I'm intending for the discussion to eventually lead to an ordinance change that, as of now, is not written. I haven't put pen to anything, and it's going to be to our ordinances on alcoholic beverages. Why now, and why do we need a solution? Do we have a problem? I think that I can sufficiently illustrate that, yes, we do have a problem. And the solution in the past has been to kick the can down the road by addressing these problems as they come up. A good example of that would be our recent history with Van Epps Park and how the council decided to ban alcohol at that park. We didn't really do anything but move the problem. We have made the choice to deal with the problem to where it moved to at that time. And I feel it's time to deal with our problems in a different manner. Numerous other communities across the country have passed ordinances banning or prohibiting the sale of certain types of alcoholic beverages, and they've done it with a great success. I'll share with you some of those successes, as well as numerous studies that show a municipality can make a difference. First of all, I'd like to start by defining what is a nuisance crime, because this is where this discussion really stems from. Our Sioux Falls Police Department lists several different things as nuisance crimes. It could be anything from being an intoxicated subject to somebody passed out on a lawn somewhere, a fight, disorderly subjects, any sort of citizen complaint. My conversation with police officers and our legal staff estimate that somewhere between 70 and 80% of our nuisance incidents probably involve alcohol to some level. When you think about, since 2012, we've had 65,000 nuisance reports to our police department. 65,000 reports that our police officers had to follow up on. In 2012, this is a map of the city of Sioux Falls and where all these nuisance incidents came from. And you can definitely see it in the core area of our city where we have an issue. In 2015, it really hasn't changed. We do have a concentration. The problem is probably, you could even say, spreading and definitely increasing. Just to zoom in on our core of our city, our downtown area, give you an idea of how many reports there are or what they look like in 2012 and again in 2015. In 2012, backing up, Pettigrew Heights had the highest number of incidents, and they had about 8,000 of them for that year. And in 2015, our problem began spreading into the Whittier neighborhood. And this could probably be attributed, because this is just our first 4 months of the year, there's been about 2,000 in this area. Our police department are making a difference. They are a much bigger presence in both neighborhoods, and they have concentrated their efforts in the Whittier neighborhood. So the fact that we have these reports doesn't mean that necessarily a bad thing, but the fact that our police officers are truly doing their jobs. But these are all, again, nuisance incidents. From 2012 to 2014, you can see the trend line. In 2014, we had 19,000, probably 19,100 incidences in that year alone, up from just over 18,000 in 2012. So our problem, or this increasing trend is concerning, and ignoring the problem isn't going to make it go away. This year, in the through April, gives you an idea, from 2012 to 2015 through April, the number of calls that have come in that are nuisance incidences. Now, I'd like to take at this time just to point out, we had a meeting earlier today and we talked about how can we help the county. That was brought up at our informational meeting. You remember that this is pointed out by Minnehaha County and specifically our sheriff, that when our Sioux Falls Police Department makes an arrest, that person then becomes the custody of the Minnehaha County, and it's their problem to take care of. So by addressing our problem, can we help the county out by reducing the number of people that are incarcerated, thus reducing their burden that they have? I have a study here that I want to reference. It's by the Virginia Commonwealth University Clark Hill Institute for Positive Youth Development. They'd have a research project that discovered that rates of violence were higher near convenience stores that sold inexpensive single-serve alcoholic beverages. The residents of that community held several community forums, and they requested that the Virginia Alcohol Beverage Control Board issue restricted licenses to allow only the sale of 6-packs, 12-packs, or cases of beer, and not the inexpensive and popular 40 or 22-ounce bottles. And they succeeded. They got their way. The restrictions only lasted 6 months, though, because store owners pushed back against the restrictions and they ultimately won. The thing is, while the restrictions were in place, they totally worked. Researchers tracked violence near convenience stores, and they narrowed the data down to see that pickups related to injuries sustained from intentionally violent acts, and only pickups that involved people ages 15 to 24. And during the 6-month the alcohol sales restrictions were in place, the number of ambulance pickups for that age group dropped dramatically from a rate of about 20 pickups per 1,000 people to a rate of 0. And after the restrictions were lifted, ambulance calls went up again. Another study, this one was in San Bernardino, California, and they found that where there's more shelf space devoted to already chilled single-serving drinks, such as 40s and tall boys, there is even more violence. And at the University of Minnesota, and this is a good one, there's an entire research team devoted to studying how alcohol sales affect communities. There's what they call an alcohol impact area, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more. But to be fair to the whole process, the problem really isn't alcohol, it's poverty. And that's what these studies all come down to, and you can ask any of our local people. So the problem's not alcohol, it's poverty, but alcohol does make the problem worse. Okay, what is single-serve alcohol? You'll see just kind of a comparison for size, a 12-ounce can of pop, a 40-ounce of Old English 800, and a 2-liter Pepsi bottle. That Old English 800, typically alcohol content there is 7.5%. The Natural Light in the middle, the alcohol content there is about 4.2%. Now, examples of more of the single-serve size, these products contain several servings of alcohol, which encourage excess consumption. And they're sold cold. They're meant to be consumed when you buy them. If you look at that bottle of Old English 800, in Sioux Falls at a local convenience store, again, that has the equivalent of 5 shots of whiskey, and you can purchase that for $2.50 in Sioux Falls. That bottle of Mickey's, is $1.69, and that has 5.7% alcohol content. To the far right, the black ice, the Camo, that is a 24-ounce can. It has 10.5% alcohol and can be purchased for $1.89 in Sioux Falls. Steel Reserve, I don't believe is illustrated. Oh yeah, right up on top. Alcohol content, 8%, purchased for $1.99. So it's cheap and it has high alcohol content. One thing that we haven't seen in Sioux Falls yet is Alka-Pop, basically already blended pop with alcohol. I'm not aware of any stores that sell it. There might be some out there. This truly is intended to be marketed to a younger crowd. It is a 24-ounce can, and it has an alcohol content of 12%. Okay. From Arlington Heights, Illinois. They passed an alcohol ban, and is it working for them? They say that downtown areas that used to be littered with discarded 40-ounce beer cans are now mostly debris-free, and other problems in the area have decreased as well. They passed their ban effective on January 1st of 2010. Single can sales of chilled beer or malt liquor of less than 24-ounce bottles, or less than 24 fluid ounces, bottles less than 12 fluid ounces, and bottles 40 fluid ounces or larger were prohibited. Wine bottles less than 10 fluid ounces and other liquor bottles of less than 6.4 fluid ounces were also banned. Now, between 2008, before the program was implemented, and 2010, they had an 89% reduction in nuisance complaints downtown, 89%. They had a 60% decline in unwanted subject incidences and a 58% decline in battery and assault cases, according to this study. All righty. Two ways that communities have really approached how they can control their nuisance crimes in their citywide or in their downtown area. One common one is the single-serve alcoholic beverage restriction. You ban the sale of off-sale alcohol. It's simply off-sale. You know, the one way to do it is having it in an alcohol impact area. And what an alcohol impact area would be, going back to one of the screens that show our downtown or core area, that could be defined as an alcohol impact area, okay? Or doing it citywide. I would suggest that, you know, just based on the argument that if you ban it in just a certain part of town, you can go to another part of town and buy it. So if you're going to look at a ban of single-serve alcohol beverages like that, level the playing field, make it the same for everybody, and make it citywide. And then the other part would be limiting the off-sale operating hours and in what you would call an alcohol impact area. And from talking to our attorneys, we have to have the justification. If we have the justification for why we're doing it in that area, and we can show that it is a problem, that would allow it for us to proceed with that. That might be a good option for the core of the city. Now, from Omaha's Code of Ordinances, the council there finds that the council further, okay, let me back up here. Placing increased stress on law enforcement and other city resources from alcohol use, the council further finds that this nuisance conduct associated with alcohol sales has a negative impact on the health, safety, and welfare of residents, including fear for a person's safety, deterioration of neighborhoods, evaluation of property, impairment of the city's property tax basis, and destruction of the community's values and quality of life. Now, they recognize that alcohol is a legal product and its sale is licensed and regulated by state laws. The council there finds the sale of alcohol is a type of business that has such potentially harmful impact on the community that it requires special business regulatory attention to promote and ensure a safe and beneficial environment for the city's residents. No, I'm not a teetotaler. I've been known to enjoy beer and whatever beverages, so don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating prohibition here, but I am looking at the type of alcohol that is contributing to the crime problem in our community. In Sioux Falls, in South Dakota, state statutes allow for the sale of alcohol pretty much from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. And when we talk about an alcohol impact area, we could look at restricting that. South Dakota state law doesn't say that we can't change it. We can't allow it before 7 a.m. or after 2 a.m., but we can sure change the hours that it is allowed to be sold. I want to back up just for a second again and thank Jim David and Dave Bixler for all the work they did, because without their help I wouldn't have been able to compile all these graphs and a lot of this research. So just to give recognition where it's due. This graph here shows our intoxicated and disorderly subjects by hour. And this is just for the months of January, February, March, and April. And it's for the last 4 years. Alcohol sales begin at 7 a.m. Now, you might be trying to conclude something just by the fact that bars, or that you can buy alcohol at 7 a.m., but by 10 a.m., the number of calls really goes up. What I find really interesting on this map is that the number of calls at 3 p.m. are about the same as they are at 10 p.m. And again, most of our problems are downtown. If we had an alcohol impact area, we could change maybe when off-sale alcohol begins to be sold in the downtown area. What hour is that? I don't know. We could pick one or take a look at different options. But you can see just in the early afternoon alone, the number of nuisance incidents that we have across our community. Now, the purpose of an alcohol impact area is for local authorities to have a process to mitigate the problems that we have with alcohol. It could be chronic public inebriation or illegal activities, but it is definitely been tried. It is allowed. Okay, that's the important thing I guess I would like to illustrate there. This map right here, if we were to look at an alcohol impact area, you could probably, just off of the maps I've given you, draw a line from 2nd Street down to about 14th or 15th Street, and again from Grange Avenue over to roughly to Cliff Avenue, and that would encompass where the majority of our nuisance incidences are occurring. This map also shows how many off-sale licenses there are in that part of our community. Now, not all of them are actively doing off-sale alcohol sales. They could be well, I'm not going to name any names, but there's a number of businesses that have an off-sale license that don't have a retail storefront for the purchase of alcoholic beverages. That pretty much concludes what I wanted to bring forward to you. What I would like to do is, with this committee's permission, is to come back next month with some proposed changes or additions to our alcoholic beverage ordinances for discussion and public input. At this time, I would like to take some questions. If you have questions on what I've been able to turn up, basically, or maybe why.
Okay, good. We'll open it up to the councilors for questions, and then it is my intention also to ask for any. I know there's a few members in the public here that would like to have some input too. So first, Councilor Staggers.
Yes. I guess I was curious, Dean, as to how you decided to go about researching this, because I haven't had people really tell me there's a real problem. But can you say something about how this came about?
Well, again, 65,000 nuisance incidences. And unless you've maybe been a victim of a property crime or something, if you don't live in Whittier or Pettigrew, it might not be that big of an issue because, again, going back to the map, it is pretty wide scattered. But unless you live in the core area, you probably don't notice it as much. A couple of years ago, there was a study done on part of our citizen survey that people just didn't feel safe downtown after dark. And, is it a perception or is it reality? Well, it's probably, maybe perception is reality, and it's probably because of some of the issues that we have downtown.
Councilor Jameson.
Councilor Karski, thank you for bringing this to us at the Land Use Committee. It's quite a topic to try to weigh out. Couple things, you brought it back to probably the main heart of the matter, I suppose, is poverty. And I think you identified that, I think, through all your research and some of the studies. I would think you're probably correct with that assessment, and those studies probably prove it as well. I'd share one story and then a thought. One story is I do know of a business owner downtown who used to sell the products that you're talking about, and he successfully regulated the customers that he had by raising the price and then eventually eliminating the product. That business regulated which customers were coming in his store. He did that himself. So it works. I guess that's what I'm trying to maybe hint at. It works, but he did it on his own. If these business owners around the downtown and other areas, as you identify these areas, decided to do the same on their own, they can control it. They could control that. Now, they would shift and move and do something different, and I don't know what that would be exactly, but those business owners have the opportunity to help and be a part of this on their own. Are you arguing, though, that if somebody was forced to pay a higher price or buy a larger quantity of these items that they would not buy them?
Yes, I am, and actually there's a few studies that I can reference to you. Basically, providing cheap alcohol designed to promote intoxication that contributes to neighborhood decay is hardly a benefit to low-income communities. In many poor neighborhoods, malt liquor is cheaper than milk, and I think you could qualify that here in Sioux Falls. The low price of malt liquor increases the risk of intoxication and alcohol-related problems among youth and low-income individuals. That's from a study. Let's see, this is from the National Alcohol Survey presented at the 24th Annual Meeting of the Research Society of Alcoholism. And going back to your other statement that if we restrict the sale, we're going to be hurting some small businesses. And again, I can reference some studies, but comprehensive evaluations in Seattle and Tacoma, Washington showed no evidence of any systemic decline in taxable retail sales for any of the liquor stores affected by the policies. And retailers in one Washington, D.C. found that the absence of loiterers and panhandlers outside of their stores brought new customers in, so that increased sales of other products replaced any income lost from selling singles. And then, the other point is that many citizens have questioned whether a business model that relies on malt liquor sales is in the best interest of their community anyway.
Well, if I could, I think you're right, again, on those studies and what those other communities have probably found to be true, because I know it to be true, at least from one business owner. It eliminated the panhandling and others loitering around the business who were only buying those particular products for sure, because they moved on to another place. But what I'm worried about is a business owner doing that is up to them, and that's great if whatever they may want to do. But I'm just a little cautious about the city getting in and regulating, because what you're really, I think at the end of the day, what you're almost saying and recommending is you're almost trying to regulate poverty, or move poverty out and away from certain places by eliminating their opportunities to buy products that maybe only those in a poverty state would be able to do. And I'm just not, I appreciate your effort here of trying to find a solution, and I'm not tired or done of it. I'm just recognizing that I'm concerned about the city initiating an ordinance to change the practice, that's all.
To that point, even, when I brought this to one of the board members of the Bishop Dudley Hospitality House, he thanked me. He said, congratulated me. He said, do it. We got to get this done. You're right. Poverty is truly the base of the issue. But a lot of the people that, by making the product available right in the areas where they're living and trying to get well and better, isn't helping them. And that's where it comes from. Alcohol has been regulated by the government forever. And what we would be doing here isn't anything different than regulating alcohol that's already a product that is subject to regulation by government.
One last follow-up, if I could. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Speaking of the regulations and government and all that enforcement, who would you envision going through all these stores, making sure that they're not selling these products?
You know, as in most ordinances, it'd probably be by a complaint basis. Our Sioux Falls Police Department, I wouldn't envision them going and doing alcohol checks, but when they do stings, it could be part of the sting process. And those that are in violation, either on a complaint basis or that are found to be in violation, they have to come to us to renew their alcohol license. And if they're out of compliance, it's up to us if we want to renew their license or not.
I don't mean to banter, but you know as well as I do that our ability to revoke somebody's license is nil. We can recommend it to the state, but and I would well.
Thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
Counselor, the first thing that came to my mind was, have we talked to some of the business owners that are selling these products in those areas to see if there's any interest in trying to restrict these sales of these products?
The discussion when I began the process with our city attorney and the police department is, you know, how to best go about it. And no, the short answer is no. And the reason why is you pick a plan, you pick a process to go through. They're going to find out about it. I'm not coming to you saying, hey, here's a great ordinance idea, let's make some changes. I'm bringing it to you because I want them to know that we are looking at it, and I want them to have time for input. But I didn't see the benefit of having a room full of them that sell this and me saying, hey, I'm going to take this away from you. I just didn't see where that would be a constructive process to go through.
As we're sitting now, though, do you see if that might be a productive step to make now?
Oh, I imagine that we're going to be
public?
that discussion will be had, but I'd prefer that it be had this way.
I also do not disagree with you. I think that there is a need to do something, but I guess I would like to see this studied a little bit longer than to just bring this back for another reading, you know, very quickly. I think it might be a good idea to have maybe meetings with a few of those people that are in the business, find out what they're seeing, just to make sure that, you know, if we have their support, then I feel it's a lot easier to go through with these type of changes. I experienced Friday, so I'd say, you know, driving to a police retirement party and a park very close to the Dudley Center, Heritage Park. It's a park we've discussed before as that we thought we may see problems after we made another park a ban on no drinking at that park. On my way to this retirement ceremony, I saw an individual on the ground, not moving, not responding to anything, and had to call law enforcement to make them aware, because I actually had to drive up and get out of my vehicle to make sure the person was still breathing. We had 3 police officers, a fire, and an ambulance show up. So as we talk about resources, there's for one person that was out. It took them about 10 minutes to revive the person. Like I said, he was breathing, but to bring him back to a point where we could communicate with him. And then at that point, he became quite violent and had to be restrained by law enforcement. So I've seen the whole, gauntlet of that. But anytime we try to bring any type of, ordinance change on these type of businesses, I just would like to see at least a conversation with the interested parties. And this goes back to when we approved the Makadas on 11th Street. There was a big concern about how many off-sale businesses we were concentrating in a small area. And, that's, to me, that's the one of the basis of the problems, is that we've allowed these businesses to get concentrated in there. They're competing, they're lowering their prices, and it's just making it more easier to get that alcohol that has the higher octane and more punch per can. So I think there's more things to talk about on this, but I do think you're on the right track.
And thank you, Counselor. When you talk about having that conversation, who do you bring to the table? Do you bring to the table just those retailers that sell that alcohol, or do you bring to the table those that did and chose not to, or those that just said we never will? Who's involved in that conversation?
Well, I think by making it public like it is now, we're already reaching out to those individuals or to those businesses and saying, now is your time to have a voice if you feel that this is something you would like to speak on, whether it be positive or negative.
Thank you, and that was my intent completely.
Yeah.
Any other questions from committee members? Because if not, I have a few for Councilor Karski, as long as he's up here, and then I'm going to open it up for public input.
And if you have questions of any of the legal staff, Jamie Palmer or anything else, I didn't ask them to be here. I was pleasantly surprised that they were, and I thank them for being here today. So they've been greatly involved in the process of me being up here today.
My questions may involve them. It depends upon how well you've done your homework, I guess.
Thank you.
What is the limit in terms of ounces for a single serve before it becomes a multi-serve in a single container?
And that's where we would look to other communities and what they did. I mean, a single serve could be, you can go to some convenience stores and buy a single 12-ounce can of beer. It's cold, it's ready to go. Why do you buy a single serve 12-ounce can of beer when you put gas in? You don't probably take it home and put it in your refrigerator. It's probably consumed while it's on the road. So the single serve 12-ounce, 24-ounce, 40-ounce. These are all the types of single serves that I'm talking about. And to have a minimum purchase of the 12-ounce variety probably would be a 6-pack or 12-pack, as the one study that I referenced. But totally eliminating those 24 and 40-ounce alcoholic, especially the malt beverages. Like I said, I haven't prepared anything. That would be up to this committee and the rest of the council to decide, are we going to do this and what does it look like?
Right. And I ask that question because then, of course, where do you draw the line between malt liquor and other hard liquors and pints and quarts or what have you?
Yep. Or this small airplane size. Some communities have tried that and they went away from it because it really didn't have an effect. Most of those, like I said, if you go to a 40-ounce Old English, that has the equivalent of 5 shots of whiskey, and you can get that for $1.70. If you go to buy 5 of those little airplane miniatures, you're probably paying upwards of $10, $12 for it. So those really don't have an impact on.
So the other communities, basically, if they're regulating anything, it's more the malt liquor single serves.
Yeah, exactly.
Did any of them run into situations where they just stopped selling them as singles and they went to 2-packs?
I've heard of that, yes. I mean, retailers are entrepreneurs. They can be creative. So, yeah, I mean, that is always a potential. So that's something we have to look at.
Okay, now this is the question. State regulates the sale of alcohol. Are we allowed to pass ordinances of this type without being in violation of
I'm
state
not an
law?
attorney, so Paul Bangford, come on down.
Okay. And if you would please state your name and address.
Paul Bingford, Assistant City Attorney. Yes, the state does set regulations on that, and we can't be less restrictive than the state. We do have the ability to be more restrictive than the state in certain circumstances, and so as long as we're talking about being more restrictive, we have more leeway there. All right.
I'm assuming without a total ban, or what's the limits on more restrictive?
Well, and the discussions that we've had haven't dealt with the total ban of alcohol in Sioux Falls, but in terms of single serve and banning in that regard, yeah, if we wanted to go to a total ban of alcohol, I think that would probably cause some problems, but I don't know anybody's talked about doing that as part of this process.
Talking about here. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes. Paul, hold on for a second. Councilor Anderson.
You know, since we've been talking about single serve, it's been more around the beer, the malt liquor and everything. But I guess I'd like you to comment on, would it also include like these small airplane bottles of alcohol, liquor,
Sure.
and how would we handle that?
Yeah, and in talking to Councilor Karski in terms of coming here today, that was one of the reasons why we didn't come with a prepared ordinance in terms of this is what the plan is. The thought was to see what the committee thought, to see what the input from the community is, and then tailor that into a situation that would be workable for the community. There have certainly been discussions about various ways that it can be done, but the thought was not to present it in a fashion that would be, you know, this is the way that we think is best, but to open it up for a discussion and then craft the ordinance from input from everybody.
Thank you.
And I have just one more question for Councilor Karski, actually. Thank you, Paul. Arlington Heights, Illinois, they seem to be a success story. Can you tell me, did they ban or limit off-sale hours, or a combination of both?
They simply, well, they started by banning alcohol, even the small miniatures, and their compromise eventually was to allow the miniatures, but they strictly went to the ban of the single-serve alcoholic beverages, not an hour or an alcohol impact area. You know, if I could add something, you know, the whole point of this is kind of goes back to what Councilor Anderson said. You know, you make one call, one incident, nuisance incident, 3 police officers, a fire truck, an ambulance. I mean, the resources that are used because of a poor choice that maybe we're enabling people to make, it really puts a drain on our resources.
Of course, the challenge there is determining the source of the reason for the call.
Yes.
And
again,
I don't
going
know
back
that
to 80.
that is collected, unfortunately.
Yep. And again, a very large percentage of those nuisance calls do involve that.
I could see that the limiting off-sale hours, that would be challenging, because according to your last graph here, I mean, if we broke it into the day into thirds, the peak is actually between 2 and 10 o'clock. So, I mean, you're looking at quite a long period of time. Mm-hmm. So,
yep.
Okay. Any other questions of Councilor Karski? If not, at this point, I'm going to open it up for public discussion. If there's any members of the public that would like to comment on this particular issue, please step forward and state your name and address or who you represent.
I'll be brave. Dave Grevlis, Brandon, South Dakota. Spend 90% of my time in Sioux Falls. I own and operate the shopping cart stores. 47 years in Sioux Falls. I was interviewed today by the media, and I didn't say anything bad about anybody. But that's why I'm here. I thought I'd better just kind of get involved. I obviously disagree with policing us when we police ourselves, but I'm fortunate not to have a store in this problem area. I know exactly where this is, and yeah, it's become a problem in this city. Lived here my whole life. So you know, I police my own stores, just like you talked about. We have a gang element in Sioux Falls. It's not publicly talked about, but I've gotten involved with them and not let them become a problem in my properties, because again, I have customers that I need to feel safe at my stores, all hours of the day. So I police my own stores. I've actually had meetings with people who are the gang leaders, one-on-one. Didn't get the police involved. I felt I could handle it. And I have curtailed all problems that I think would have been associated with that. I did not want mine to be the hangouts. So I get along with them to this day. I see them almost on a weekly basis. They respect me, and they don't cause problems. I don't know what they do when they come downtown, but in my places, they behave. But my success really relies on people feeling safe coming in my business. But this problem, again, it's a society problem. I think we need to find things for these people to do besides stand around and drink all day. They have their little groups, and you just see them 24/7. They're sitting in their groups. They got nothing else to do. This is just what it leads to. But again, I'm not going to solve all the problems here, but I'd be willing to be one of the representatives of the businesses, because I think I have the most experience since I was 6 years old, been doing this, and I sell these products. We don't have people sitting buying them, drinking in my parking lot, and then beating each other up. It just does not happen. And I'm at my stores probably 350 days out of the year. That tells you how much time off I get. But so it does not happen. It's not happening around my stores, and I don't have them in the most affluent neighborhoods either. And so, but I'd be glad to be on a committee. I think I could add a lot of knowledge to what really happens here with these kind of things. And again, I sell this product, and I'm not ashamed of it. Again, we sell alcohol responsibly, and the things that are happening downtown are not happening all over this city. I can assure you there. And ironically, I was approached out in the parking lot walking into this meeting with a peddler. Same people that are hanging out downtown, and approached me right outside these steps of our own deal here. So that's ironic. I politely sent him on his way, said, "Have a nice day." You know, so, but anyway, it's happening all over. But anyway, I'd be willing to be on that committee if anybody wants to put me on there. Thank you.
Any questions of Dave before he steps away? Okay, thank you very much, Dave. Thanks for your comments. Would anybody else like to address the committee? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Michelle Urbanbach, Sioux Falls City Council. I also don't disagree with this conversation. I think that it's a conversation we need to have. We need to be realistic about the issues that are surrounding this, and we need to be realistic about the resources that we may or may not have involved with this. And I think that it's important to note, too, and I think Councilor Karski and his research proved that this isn't a Sioux Falls problem. This is a national problem, and it's a topic that all you have to do is Google alcohol impact zone, and you're going to get just a list of things, all sorts of things. This conversation is happening all over the country. Then the other thing that I would say is that we have the experts right here in Sioux Falls that understand these stories, that understand this issue for our community, and I think we should take advantage of that group as well. The Homeless Advisory Board is a city-county project that includes city staff and county staff and school district staff, in addition to some really, really intelligent, really connected citizens who are involved with the Homeless Advisory Board. I would like that if this committee decides this conversation needs to go forward, that the Homeless Advisory Board at least be included in the conversation. If we don't even have maybe a hearing with them, maybe we do a presentation with them. But I think most of all, we need to call on those folks as our experts behind the scenes, and the connections that they have in terms of, especially with the National Healthcare for the Homeless Association, that group can help us and has helped the city of Sioux Falls with providing national expertise. They can come in and do some teaching. They can come in and help us do the research. They can also help us make recommendations. And one of the other pieces we need to think about pretty clearly, and I think it's been alluded to, but I think we need to say it out loud, is this idea of the constitutional implications of this kind of a process, that we need to make sure we are making these steps in the right way, that we don't come back and regret what we've done. The other thing that I would add to that, again, because of my association with the Homeless Advisory Board, I've learned some of these stories. And one of the things that I think you need to take into consideration, and I'd like you to hear from this group more, but one of the stories that always sticks with me about these single-serve beverages is that they contribute to underage drinking because they're so easy to shoplift. It's easy to run into a convenience store and grab that one can and run and be gone and not get caught. And so I think we're going down the right road. Let's just make sure that we're doing it the right way and that we call on those folks in our community that really can help us with this process. So as the gentleman just said, if there are ways that I could be of assistance in this kind of a task force or whatever it is that you decide that you want to do, I'd be happy to be involved with that. I think it's an important conversation for us to have. Thanks.
Very much. Any other members of the public that would like to have input on this topic? Okay, well, very well. Councilor Karski, it's obvious that you've done your homework and very well prepared, and I'll have to thank Jim and Dave for that as well too. And I know that we have you tentatively scheduled for our next Land Use Committee meeting. And I guess, and I know that Councilor Anderson has challenged you to gather yet additional information from the public that will be affected, could be potentially affected, since we're in the very early stages here. So I guess you can, I mean, obviously we have a month between now and then, and if you feel that that's not sufficient amount of time, we could always make that adjustment.
And I'll bring that back, and I have not had a chance to talk to Chad at the Bishop Dudley Hospitality House. I know the media has, and they were very receptive to this. I did reach out to Stacy Teason with the Homeless Advisory Board, and her email back to me was very positive, along the lines of what Councilor Erpenbach just said. It truly isn't an issue of alcohol. It's an issue of poverty, and what we're doing to either help change the way people act and or how we address the issue. So I will do more homework. I will reach out to some retailers. I will reach out to the Homeless Advisory, and I will work with legal and our staff to bring back some information for next month's meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Councilor Jameson.
Yes, thank you. I just have to say it. The fixing and abolishing or banning the sale of these particular products isn't going to fix the poverty issue.
You're right.
It's going to move it. And if you change it so you ban alcohol in the city, or this type of alcohol in the city, then you maybe have taken a step to force them to find something different to use.
And again, I can give you studies that say that's just not the case. I'm not looking to fix the poverty issue. There are people with a lot higher pay grade than I am that are working on that. This probably, what my point is, will make their job easier and won't be a drain on the city's resources.
Well, I just find it hard to believe that we're chasing the symptoms of poverty. What you're asking to do is chase the symptom. This body, I would find it probably more productive to be focused on the poverty issue, because that would do all those similar impacts as well. But who could fix that? Who hasn't tried? And I'm just concerned about us chasing our tail putting our efforts in the wrong place. I'm okay with continuing the discussion. If you're concerned about the committee's position, I'm okay with continuing the discussion to find solutions for an area of town that is challenged. That's the issue. How we fix it is great discussion. You're part of that. You're bringing up a topic of a method and part of that, but I'd rather focus on fixing the issue in those areas and addressing those areas as the point, not so much the issue of whether we should ban this type of alcohol sale. That's how I see it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you very much, Councilor Karski.
Thank you. I'll be busy.
And it's always good. I'm one that believes in dialogue, and I don't think there's much harm in talking about the situation, but as Councilor Erpenbach has stated, we do need to be very prudent how we proceed as well, too. So we will continue with this discussion in the future. Okay, next item is open discussion. Any points of discussion that any of you want to bring forward? Councilor Jameson.
I would just ask if you have any kind of an update that you could give us on your committee studies with the billboard development, if you've got any point
Sure,
that you'd like
sure.
to share.
Well, we have had 2 meetings, and most of that has been informative by nature and discussion of ordinances that other cities have enacted. And our next meeting is actually scheduled for Tuesday the 23rd, I believe, without looking at my calendar. And that will be conducted at 8 a.m. In the old commission room, city commission room at City Hall. And I think at this particular meeting, we'll start looking at some potential solutions to what we've identified as our major point of discussion regarding the billboards. Any other points of discussion? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.